I heard you went to Morocco to do a thing there. Explain, what happened?
Well, we did a track with this North African piece, and we had this tribe of musicians called Jajuka but many years ago, Brian Jones recorded, and we put out this record on Rolling Stones label. And they wrote to us and said, you know, we'd like to do some more things. The guy died, who was the head of the tribe, and his son had taken over, and he was younger, and he lived a bit in New York, and he wanted to get involved. So we said, that's a great idea for this piece, you know, so we went to Morocco and recorded them.
You recorded the entire song in Morocco? Or?
No, we recorded the song, and then we recorded them playing along with it. They played strange pipes, and they have a mystical ceremony every year, which relives the ceremony of the pipes of Pan, which is a very old tradition. And we knew that these pipes would work very, very well over this track, so we did that.
I'm Bashir Attar, and I'm son of the master musician of Jajuka. I'm take my father place, and this is the home of my father, music. I'm learn this music when I am about 4 years old, and you're welcome.
I love this country very much.
Difficult bit's over. What? I know, isn't that fun?
It's what?
Also in London.
Is it?
Yeah.
I remember this.
Yeah, it hasn't changed, just hardly.
This is the other Elminster car, sweetie.
Come here. Are we driving? Am I driving?
No. Can you pack the boot?
Yes. All right.
And I'll see you down in the Elminster about an hour. Okay, put it in the other car. Put it in the
other car. Okay.
Throughout this century, the liberal and exotic atmosphere of Tangier has been a lure for Westerners seeking inspiration, adventure, and in some cases refuge. Jack Kerouac made the journey in 1957, and a few years later William Burroughs made several of these extraordinary home movies. Burroughs also wrote his most famous novel, The Naked Lunch, largely in Tangier. Gregory Corso and Allen Ginsberg joined the 50s Beat Party, But the uncrowned king of the expatriate artists was Paul Bowles, the American novelist and composer who had been living in Tangier since the 30s. Bowles was one of the first Westerners to go up into the hills and hear the extraordinary music of Jajuka. Before starting the recording session, Mick Jagger paid a visit.
Is it a long time since you've heard these Jajuka people? A long time.
Except on tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been down there since it was in the 50s. I went down with Brian Geisen.
Geisen, yeah.
And, well, Hamry.
Yeah.
Do you know Hamry?
Well, I met him once, I think.
I think he's persona non grata in Jajuka now.
Is he? What did he do?
We went to London and picked up all the royalties for the album. It was supposed to be divided democratically in the village.
Because, did you go when Brian Jones went there?
Hmm?
When Brian Jones went there?
He wasn't there when I was there, no. No, I was there before that.
Yeah, and that's the 50s, and he went there in like 67 or something.
Quite much later, yes.
Something like that, and then maybe it was earlier than that, but we put out the album, but he changed the sounds a lot of it. I mean, he did all kinds of strange things with it, processed it.
It comes in and out.
That's it, sort of phases. But that record's quite well known now in sort of a sort of cult way.
Oh, yeah. I think it was quite quickly after it was issued. Yeah.
Jajuka is about 50 miles south of Tangier, in the foothills of the Rif Mountains. The musicians have traditionally been supported by the local people, and they have effectively acted as court musicians, playing at weddings and celebrations. There are festivals where they play for 10 hours at a time. Once a year they reenact the rites of Pan in the festival of Boujalou, which embodies a mixture of fertility rites. The dancer dressed in animal skins represents Pan, who is held to have given the villagers the gift of music in return for a local woman. On finding out he had been tricked into accepting the village idiot, he cures her madness. Ever since, the village and the music of Jajuka have been renowned as a cure for mental illness.
This sand is special for crazy people. Many people come here and we guard them like this, you know, and when they stay here about 1 month, or somebody is more sick, he can stay here about 2 months or 3 months. Few people they stay here. And this is the truth. When they stay here, they go and finish with the problems they have, or for crazy people. The people come from Europe, from England, directly to this sand. And the people come from America to here, to visit, because they listen about Saint Sidi Ahmed Sheikh, what he means. Because he's big Sufi who come to present the Islam in forced here in this village. And he give the name for this village, Zahwan Ja'aka, something coming good for you. The name of Jeju come in. Something good come to you.
Think about the Jajuka, they did have this sort of odd historical connection which was kind of appealing somehow.
Jajuka.
Very tenuous, admittedly, but it did have a sort of... And there was this coincidental thing where when I was writing this song that we're going to do this drumming on and playing pipes and so on tomorrow, I said, oh, this would be great if we could have someone like Jajuka on it. And like the week after that, I got a letter from them saying, could we come and play on a show we do? So it was very coincidental, that part of it. But we sent them the tape, right? We sent the tape to Bashir. And, but it was in a very early state. There was no singing on it. There was no, nothing really except just the drum. So we've got to rehearse it tomorrow morning. So I don't know how quickly they can learn or whatever. Might take a while, what do you think?
Well, they've been practicing, haven't they?
I think so.
That's what I'm told. I believe it.
We live in hope. But you're quite pessimistic about most things. You're quite pessimistic about most things.
About most things, yes. Yeah.
This is the first time I've been back in 20-odd years. You know,
Is it still pretty much the same place?
it is pretty much the same. It's a little bigger on the outside. The town's, you know, there's a few more farmers, but right here in the centre of the town it's exactly the same, really. Maybe a few more donkeys back in those days. You know? And just to be able to hang around somewhere and listen to other people's music, and it was so fascinating after just listening to your own for 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, and now it's all very fashionable, this sort of world music.
Yeah, well, I think that's got to do a lot with communications, right? We get people start to hear more and more about what's going on in other places, and there's more contact between people, and so something that would have appeared really sort of exotic and strange maybe 20 years ago slowly people start to accept other music from other parts of the world.
حالتي كنا نتكلم عليه بزاف خلي هذا يزيد. This is علي.
Ali.
هذا ميك جاجر معلم كبير. This is Abdullah.
Abdullah.
هذا ميك
How are you?
جاجر.
Hello.
This is Ali.
Ali, hello.
هذا ميك جاجر. This is my brother Mustafa, my little brother.
Hello. Your younger brother?
Yeah, this is my little brother.
This is your older brother. You're not so bad with him?
No, huh?
You're strong with him?
Yes, he play with me the music. We play sometimes together, man. This is Abdul Nabi. هذا ميك جاجر. This is Abdullah.
Abdullah.
This is Muhammad.
Mohammed.
This is old man. He want to see you. Buso she busa. He want to kiss you. And I think he meet you a long time in Tangier.
In Tangier?
In 1001 Night with Brian Geisen.
With Brian Geisen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is his name Ali.
Ali, hello Ali.
هذا ميك جاجر.
Hi. Hi.
أجي. هذا محمد.
Mohammed.
ميك جاجر معلم كبير. This is المختار. ميك جاجر. This I be very happy to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is Ali. This is Abslam.
Abslam. Hi.
This is Lahsan. هذا ميك جاجر. This is all of them
This
here,
is good.
and they are very, very, very happy. We're waiting for you 20 years ago. We're waiting for you, Mig, and all of them be very, very happy.
Well, I'm very happy that we could all come.
Thank you very much. هذا ران. This is Abdullah.
Abdullah.
This is Keith Richard. Ranwood.
Yeah, we're so
Joe Keith Richard. Arab Hassan. Ranga. Joe Keith Richard. Keith Richard. Ranwood. Joe. You're welcome. Beautiful. Thank you.
I could tell I could find my way.
We just been playing. Yeah, we play with your rhythm.
Track.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. With
Yeah.
the song.
Yeah.
Great. How's it sound? Good?
The sound is perfect. It's fantastic.
Good.
Thank you.
Just an idea that Mick and I looked together and said, well, if ever we could use the Zhuka pipes, this is probably the track to do it on, you know. They pick it up amazingly quickly at first. It's just this cacophony of sound, but then suddenly you start, they're getting their patterns down, you know. It's a lot of drummers, you know, they all have to work out what they're going to play. But, it's the pipes I want to hear next.
Good. Well done. Quite tiring. Do you know what we should do? Is to get the fast part, the very fast part, the groove bit going to that.
Definitely.
It's a separate piece because that's really great if we could get that.
Doing a section.
They did a really good end then, which we can put in
Yes.
for the stops.
What we have to have adequate bits for each section. You know, to think that we need. So should we just go for this really fast section now?
Yeah, I think, yes, from the speeding up. I mean, I don't know if I will get that speeding up a bit. Certainly when they get into that, when it goes for a long time.
Yeah, when it's a long time on the speed, we can do that.
And that is really, that's really important.
That's what I think we should go for next.
Yeah,
and then give them a break and then
and do some try a bit more.
Yeah, we can do a little bit separate drumming afterwards as well.
And then pipes after that. Yeah.
So off to the pub. Let's go for the speeding up.
Go down a red line.
It was the 1967, and we'd all been. My house had been raided by the boys in blue, and we thought, well, that's a good start to a year off. So we said, well, yeah, let's get out of here.
When Mick Jagger and Keith Richards came out of court, they were surrounded by...
So some friends of ours, Robert Fraser and Christopher Gibbs, were coming down, and Michael Cooper were coming down to Morocco. So we said we'd join them down here. So I felt like driving. So I drove from London through France and Spain with Brian and Anita. And Brian got ill, I remember, and so we carried on without him and left him in a hospital. And eventually, when we got here, he was already better, and he was already at the hotel. So, and after that, things get kind of hazy because we were so punch drunk from all that time on the road. But we were here for weeks before we then drove on to Marrakesh. And we were just wandering around listening to music.
Whilst they were in Marrakesh, the Rolling Stones met royal photographer Cecil Beaton, who had been visiting Morocco since the 30s. He photographed them and recorded the meeting in his diary.
An evening with the Rolling Stones, Marrakesh, March 1967. On Tuesday evening, I came down to dinner very late, and to my surprise, sitting in the hotel lobby, discovered Mick Jagger and a sleepy-looking band of gypsies. It was a strange group. I don't want to give the impression that I was only interested in Mick, but it happened that we sat next to one another as he drank a vodka Collins and smoked with pointed finger held high. His skin is chicken breast white and of fine quality. He has an inborn elegance. He talks of native music. He'd heard a local tribe playing pipes like those used in Hungary and Scotland. He liked Indian music too. He said he'd like to go to Kashmir and Afghanistan. In fact, to get right away from England, which he considered had become a police state with harassment and interference. He maintained that he'd done nothing to deprave the youth of the country.
If one is on one's own in a private house, not doing any harm to anyone, I don't really see why all these people should wander in and say you're doing something wrong. Well, he's not committing a crime against society, perhaps against himself, it may be true to say.
The next day at 11 o'clock, Mick appeared at the swimming pool. I could not believe it was the same person walking towards us. The very strong sun reflected from the white ground made his face look a white, podgy, shapeless mess. Eyes very small, nose very pink and spreading, hair sandy dark. His figure, his hands and his arms were incredibly feminine. Their wardrobe is extensive, but everything is shoddy, poorly made. The seams burst. Keith himself had sewn his trousers, lavender and dull rose, with a band of badly stitched leather dividing the two colours. Brian, at the pool, appears in white pants with a huge black square applied onto the back. It's very smart in spite of the fact that the seams are giving way. But with such marvellously flat, tight, compact figures as they have, with no buttocks or stomachs, almost anything looks well on them.
Was that the trip where Brian heard of the Jajuka musicians?
I think so, eventually, yeah, because we were a long time in Marrakesh. We came back to Tangier, and that's, I think, when Brian got to hear about them. Because when he got back to London, he was saying, I'm going to go back and record these guys, you know. And so that was our first contact. At that time, he was really the first one in the band to bring in other elements of other people's music. You know, he was the sitar. He was very interesting. Also, he was very adept at Brian would walk in the studio, and no matter what instrument was lying around, even though he'd never played it before, he'd be able to knock something out of it very, very quickly. You know. Hence, we used to use vibraphones and stuff, mainly just because they were lying around in the studio, and everybody thought, what a wonderful piece of orchestration. But it was just sheer accident, and Brian's ability to be able to get something out of an instrument. Hence, he'd pick up some sort of primitive sort of instruments they hear and be able to play it. You know, so he brought more exotic tones to the band, shall we say? You know.
Would I mean, he left the band, and we know what happened since. But do you think if he'd stayed, would the music have taken a different course? Would the band even stay together?
I wonder. I mean, that's very difficult to say. Brian, as a guy, was one of those guys who said, I'll never make 30, and actually proved it. You know? I mean, so I really think he was burning out at the end. And then, so the question of if he was a different kind of person, then he wouldn't have been able to do what he did. I think there was a sense of urgency about Brian that he had. You know, I think he had some fatalistic idea that he wasn't going to make it for too long, and so he was trying to cram everything in at once, you know.
After travelling to Jajouka in 1968, Brian Jones wrote, "They're not singing to an audience of mortals, but rather an incantation to those on another plane."
Oh, hi.
Hello, yeah.
Hello, mate. You're welcome. Oh.
Good one. How are you?
This is the musician.
Oh.
أطلق This is all the musician waits for you.
What sort of associations does this visit call up for you?
Well, I suppose it. No, I just went in the Bashir's bedroom. There's a big picture of Brian there, and it sort of evokes that period a little bit. I mean, for me, I mean, it was something that Brian talked about and so on. And this particular village, I'd never been here before.
What did he tell you about the village after he first visited here?
I don't know what his... I don't remember him describing it in very lucid terms. He just would play the tapes over and over and over.
Now, it's really a music that's associated with madness and healing. So what was it that obsessed Brian about the music?
Yeah, a pretty psychotic time, that. Probably had a lot to do with it. The fact that in that period everyone was taking lots of acid and so on. I think that was for Brian, this was a kind of part of the acid experience. I'm guessing. I don't know. But I think so. It certainly was a bit on the edge, all the experiences he was going through, I think.
How much did his interest in this music influence the music that the Stones made? Because that was also the period of Paint It Black and We Love You.
No. Well, the Paint It Black really was before all this.
But also We Love You and Satanic Majesties.
Yeah. Well, there was an interest in sort of what was now called world music at that time. And so we were all very interested in that. I don't think Brian had any kind of exclusivity on that interest. It was of interest to everybody.
Now, what sort of effect did the music have on you when you first heard it after Brian had brought those tapes back from his recording trip here?
Well, I thought it was very strange because it was done here rather than it was done in their own village in their own time and so on. And I think they got pretty crazy. I mean, it went on and on and on probably for days, non-stop more or less. I think that was the stamina of the musicians that you could see the other day. They didn't really seem to tire them out to play these very long sections with all that breath and so on, and it's quite tiring banging a drum for sort of 6 or 7 minutes, and they just went on and on. So I think the stamina thing was great, you know, these people, and they were smoking keef, and they were playing this music for days and nights on end, and got quite carried away. I mean, it's very hypnotic.
in some ways, coming up here brings everything round full circle.
In a certain way, it's a sort of digression from hard rock, which is nice. And it's a nice experience for the band to have together, to do something just to get out of a studio or out of a rehearsal room and experience a different kind of music to get together. Bring it around full circle, it's like, it's a revisit, and I think that's good that there's some historical continuity rather than if we went somewhere where we didn't know and taking it completely a chance or a shot. There's something that was just a sort of trend that we'd kind of latched onto, whereas it feels there's a sort of a twinning between the two bands here a little bit, you know?
Just I come Sunday before.
Yeah. You were there for a long time?
I've been there about 9 months like this.
Really?
My first trip to the United States.
You like it? It's very different.
You know, it's very different. Like
New York is different.
Better. New York is very different from the rest of America.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I visit Boston too.
Ah, yeah.
I know, I always get
see, you didn't.
No, I'm doing
It's
my
all right,
act. I'm
it's
doing
all
my
right.
act.
That's right, babe.
There was the bridge part. Yeah. I just did some odds and ends, and Chuck did some bits. And...
Right, if you use your fingers on this wall, just let it fall down like that. That's it.
That was 9 o'clock.
Okay. Poppy. Okay, let's go, everyone. There we go. That's nice. That's much better for you now, Ronnie. Charlie, drop your head down a little. Glance in. Can you come through the here, please? Now with your eyes shut. Whoops. The best one.
Prospect of dying in the screen.
Mick?
Yeah,
Hold
that.
this up, that's it.
Well, I'm not going to tell you who I met.
There we go.
The bloke who was in charge of the head prison guard officer.
Scrubs.
Yeah. He was head security at the Models Dance. He said, "Give my luck a kick." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I was."
Is he the one that said, "You'll be back"?
Yeah, he said, "I was the
Decorating
head
the Christmas tree.
guard at the Scrubs when they let him out."
The Stones flew off for a hugely successful American tour to coincide with the release of their new album, Steel Wheels.